We're getting a glimpse into two terrifying shark attacks at a North Carolina beach this weekend. Two teenagers are recovering today after separate attacks in a town called Oak Island. A 13-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy both lost limbs in those attacks.
Yes, the little girl lost part of her left arm, and then less than 2 hours later, a little boy was bitten by a shark. He lost also his left arm. We now have the 911 audio from both instances. Take a listen.
We're on Oak Island. There's a girl whose hands been bitten off by a shark. We're at the 14th Street Beach Accent. It's 16th Street Southeast. We need an ambulance right away.
Okay, we're going to get help on the way. Are any of the fingers completely amputated?
It looks like her entire hand is gone.
Okay, if you can, just make sure they take a clean, dry cloth and wrap it around the wound and place pressure on it.
A clean, dry cloth to wrap around the wound. Do they have some? They have a towel wrapped around her.
Okay, just make sure they press and hold on the end of it to try to control the bleeding. Do not lift it.
They wrapped a boogie board leash around it to try to stop the bleeding.
This morning, local officials gave an update on the victims and credited the bystanders for their quick actions that helped save the two teenagers.
The keys to the success yesterday was the fact that our bystanders that were on the beach with both of these patients did very quick first aid the correct way.
Well, there's no way that we're going to stop people from going into the water. If they want to go in the water, they're going to. It's you know, there's riptides out there. People shoot fireworks off at the 4th of July. We tell them not to do that either. So, you know, there's really no way to control that. We can advise people just to be careful and be alert. Would I swim in the water? I would swim in the water today.
Joining us now via Skype is Dr. Dan Abel, professor of marine sciences at Coastal Carolina University and a shark expert for Nat Geo's Shark Fest. Thanks for being with us, Doctor.
My pleasure.
So this sounds pretty alarming. What do we know about this area in North Carolina? Are they prone to seeing many sharks in the water there?
No more or fewer than there are sharks up and down the coast. I've been studying sharks about 100 miles south of that location for about 15, 18 years, and we see 10, 15 varieties of sharks near shore. So there are sharks in the water, and frankly, we should be happy they're in there with deference to the tragic accident that occurred.
Absolutely. Now, I have a question, Doctor, which is going to be interesting. Many people are wondering if this attack was, these two attacks were done by one shark or if it was done by several sharks. Now, the reason I ask this is because, as you know, being a shark expert, the really interesting story to this is that 1916 shark attack in New Jersey, where it was posited that there were perhaps one shark that killed 4 people along the coast of New Jersey. Could we be seeing the same thing here?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely way to look at it. You know, shark attacks by themselves are very unlikely events. 2 shark attacks in close proximity in time and space are even more unlikely, but that being the case, it would be, I think, even more unlikely that it would be 2 different sharks that would, you know, would do the same, that severity of attack.
And so then that leaves my follow-up, which is that generally many scientists believe that sharks do not have a taste for human flesh, that typically it's an error in an attack. So then why, if it could have been just one shark that did this, why would a shark attack one human being and then do a follow-up attack if we're not their primary prey?
Yeah, I can't really speculate on that. Shark biologists, me included, like to distinguish between shark bites, which happen with some frequency along our coast. And these are typically mistaken identities. A black-tipped shark, say, might in murky water mistake a swimming person for a fish and bite and release very quickly with often minimal damage, versus this kind of attack where the animal, the beast involved, which probably was a bull shark, potentially a tiger, but I think more likely a bull, which has a very generalist menu, didn't dislike the taste of humans, and you know, unfortunately, these two people were victimized.
Yeah, that's in the past. I know that many attacks that have been attributed to other sharks have in fact turned out to be tiger sharks or bull sharks, which don't see very well in very murky water. In fact, as you know, all sharks don't see well. So, what are the signs that people should be looking for as they venture out into the waters out there?
I would avoid going in the water. If you see schools of fish near shore, I'd avoid going near the piers. I would avoid dawn and dusk. And if you see a shark in the water or a lot of activity in the water, then the prudent thing to do is just, even though it's a low likelihood possibility of getting bitten, I would simply keep out of the water or slowly get out of the water if you see that.
And Dr. Abel, are there perhaps, I mean, you pointed out earlier in our discussion that this is no more unusual than the typical shark activity you see along the coast in the United States. Are there parts of the country that are more prone to seeing shark attacks attacks by sharks that typically have attacked humans in the past?
Well, there are. I mean, you know, in Florida, a lot more people are in the water, especially along some of the parts of the Gulf Coast where there's a lot of more dangerous sharks. So, yeah, there are some places. We historically have a very low level of attacks in recent history, although turn of the century along our coast in southern South Carolina or the Charleston area, there were a lot of shark bites. But no, they're very low likelihood events, and so there's not much chance anywhere along our coast of getting bitten. This is just a very sad and tragic incident for these two families that were involved with this.
And finally, Doctor, as you pointed out also earlier in our discussion, people should not fear sharks, right? I mean, they are dangerous, and certainly if you see one in the water, but they do provide a balancing of our ecosystem, do they not?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what I tell people is when you swim in the ocean, chances are a shark knows you're there, and you should be thankful that they are the canaries in the coal mine for a healthy ocean. And frankly, sharks have much more to fear from us than we do from them.
All right. Certainly a tragic situation for those families there. Dr. Dan Abel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.